Hi, my name is Carlos Rodriguez, and this is a video for Florida International University Masters in Management Information System Cohort 22 Networking Management class. Today I'm going to be talking about Active Directory and how group policies help network administrators to manage users and clients. So what is Active Directory? Well, it is a technology developed by Microsoft to unify the management of an organization's users and IT resources. So basically, the administrators from the network can give users permissions, and they can assign policies to them. They can deploy software remotely, and they can apply updates to an organization. All this is based on a lightweight directory access protocol, or LDAP, or LDAP. So how does this work on a network? So we have here our Active Directory, which is in charge of communicating with Windows clients to manage their profiles, network information, and also policies to control those computers. It also talks with several other Windows servers to manage profiles and also control the information on the network, share printers, share files, and also group policies. And also it handles the information for Windows users. They control the information for each user, what their privileges are going to be, what their profiles are going to be, which computers they're going to handle, and also the policies that are going to apply to them. Also, the Active Directory can communicate with several different servers, applications, and devices in order to share information on the network regarding all other users or clients on that network. And how does Active Directory work? Well, Active Directory is a hierarchical structure of organizations, domains, trees, groups, and individual units, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on. It makes use of DNS, or domain name server, to name and locate domains, computers, and servers. And once you have installed Active Directory into a server, this is also going to be known as the Active Directory domain controller. Okay, so how is this going to work with all the computers and on the network? Well, in the implementation of the Active Directory, you're going to have organizational units, which are basically groups of users or machines for each particular department on a large network. Now, this can be done by department, by certain characteristics that either the computers or the users share, and that's going to be called the organizational units. Now, those organizational units are going to be in part being contained inside domains. This domain is basically a tree structure branching out with several organizational units. Each organizational unit is going to have even more users. Now, a tree is a combination of domains, which we can actually see here. We can have one domain here, which is in charge of handling these two computers right here, and we have another domain from the same company handling this other groupers. And then we have the concept of the forest. The forest is the actual domain server that is handling several trees, so you can actually have lots and lots of domains or trees taking care of several hundred members in the organization. Now we're going to do a little demonstration. We're going to install and configure a domain. I'm going to add a new computer and a user, and we're also going to set up a couple of group policies to restrict access to certain parts of the network operating system to the users, and also to deploy some software so that they can use it. Okay, so first we're going to add the new Active Directory role to our server. We have here two computers. One is running Windows Server 2008. The other one's running Windows 7 Professional, which is going to be our client computer for us to tell if the GPOs are working. So we're going to go here into Server Manager. We're going to click on Roles. We're going to add a new role. Okay, and we're going to choose the Active Directory Domain Service. Now it's going to ask us to install the .NET Framework 3.5. We're going to just say yes, because it's required by Windows. It's telling us all the information that regarding all the steps that are going to be taken during the installation. And here we go, it's starting. Okay, once the installation of the role has been finished, we're going to close this. Now we have to go into the Active Directory domain service role, and we're going to start the wizard, or the Active Directory domain wizard, which is going to set up our domain. So we're going to click here, and I'm going to go next. It's telling us some information about the new features in Windows Server 2008. And here we're going to choose to create a new domain forest. Since this is the first time that we're going to be setting up Active Directory in this computer, we're going to give a new domain to the computer. In this case, we're going to be doing mako.local. So we give it a name that's going to be local to the network and not so general as in mako.com or google.com, something like that. We're going to go next. The machine is checking whether the forest already exists on the computer, but since this is going to be the first time that we're setting up Active Directory in this computer, or that we're setting up a domain, he's going to find that there's nothing new in here, that everything is cool. Now here is the forest functional level. What this does is that if there are any other servers running Active Directory, you can communicate directly with them, and this is a way of assuring compatibility with older versions of Windows Active Directory. In this case, since this is the only computer, we're going to choose Windows Server 2008. We're going to click Next, and now the machine is detecting if the computer has DNS already installed in it. Now this is an important part because Active Directory works on top of the DNS to assure connectivity so that you can find all the servers, all the computers, all the users on the network. Okay, now the machine is telling me that I don't have that I have a dynamically assigned IP address to the computer, but I actually have two network cards. One that has a dynamic IP that it's taking care of the internet in the computer, and the other one is a static IP address on the second network card that is taking care of the connectivity with the second computer. In this case, we're going to say that yes, we want to continue using the dynamically assigned IP address, and it's just giving us a message that since there's no DNS installed, that he wants to go ahead and set up all the directories for the database for the Active Directory and DNS. So we're just going to click Next. Now it's asking for the restore mode administrator password. What this is going to do is that if something were to happen with the Active Directory server, the computer has a way of restoring all the information from a previous version. So in this case, we're going to add another password here. We're going to click Next, and he's all set to start configuring the DNS server and the Active Directory role, the domain, and the forest with the new name that we just assigned. Okay, and now the server has finished installing the Active Directory domain service with the new domain mako.local. Okay, we're going to finish, and the machine is going to restart now with the new configuration. Okay. Now all we have to do is start setting up all the new information for the client computer that we're going to be connecting to that Active Directory domain, and also setting up the user that's going to be using this computer. Now when we log onto the computer, one of the new things that we're going to be able to see is that the user is now also a part of the domain. So when you log onto the computer for the first time, you're going to be able to see the domain name that the user belongs to. In this case, we should see that the administrator for this computer, which is a server, is a member of the Mako network. Okay, so we're going to log in into the system, and as you can see, we have the Mako domain here and the administrator for the server who now belongs to this domain. We're going to go here and log in with our password. Now we're going to apply the settings, and now it's preparing our desktop to access the computer. Now when we log into Windows Server, it usually pops up the server management tool. and we're going to be able to manage the new role that was added to the server, in this case the Active Directory. As you can see, we have the Active Directory domain service and also the DNS service required to run the Active Directory. So we're going to go ahead into the Active Directory window, and in here we can see all the information regarding the all the services and files being used for this particular role for the computer. We can actually stop, restart the service in case there's any kind of trouble, or we can actually check if there's any warning or information regarding the startup or any kind of issues with the Active Directory. Now that we have everything set up, we're going to go ahead and create our organizational units in our new domain. So we're going to click here on the Active Directory domain service, and then on the Active Directory users and computers. We're going to open up here, and here we can see our domain, which is mako.local. We're going to right click right here, and we're going to say that we're going to create a new organizational unit. Now, for example, in one company you might have several departments or several types of groups of computers or users that you want to catalog as one group. That's an organizational unit. In this case, we're going to say that we're going to have a developer or a developers group in our company, and it's always important to protect the containers from accidental deletion. You don't want to all of a sudden delete all that organizational units and lose all the GPOs for a certain user or group of computers. Okay, now we're going to create an additional organizational unit. This time we're going to separate the computers that are on the developers organizational units and the users also inside the developers. That way we can configure whether a user can use several computers at the same time. So in this case, we're going to create another organizational unit, which is going to be for the users in this particular group. So we have developers. In developers, we're going to have computers, and we're also going to have users. We're going to go into computers, and we're going to add a new computer to the group. Now, the computer that I already have set up in the other virtual machine, I assigned it a name already, which is Mako VM for virtual machine. And we're just going to say OK. That's it. We're all set here. And now we're going to create a new user for that particular computer. So we're going to click right click again, and this time we're going to say that we're going to add a new user. It's going to ask me for particular information for this user. So in this case, it's asking me for the name, which I'm writing down here. It's going to ask me for a logon name, which can pretty much be anything you want on the network. Anything is allowed. Okay, so here we have the user logon is going to be Carlos Manuel, and the domain where this user, if we had several domains, here is where we would choose which domain this user belongs to. Okay, and then we're going to click next. It's going to be asking me for a password next time I log on, so we're just going to add one password right here. And for purposes of the presentation, we're just going to leave that password as the same, and it's not going to expire. This allows you to let the user choose their own password when they log in for the first time on the computer. And if you uncheck this, you can actually set rules that the passwords will expire every certain amount of time pre-established by the system administrator. And we're going to get next, and it's just verifying the information for this user. And now we have the user already set up on the account. And now that we have created our user, we're going to go to properties, and here you can fill out all the information for this person. Now the good thing about Active Directory is that if all of your users have all the information filled out, you can later use this as your contact book or your contact information if you have Microsoft Outlook or any other software designed for sending emails. In this case, we're going to go into our account. Here's all the information we put in before. We can actually tell the system which hours the person is allowed to log in into certain computers. So you can actually restrict the access based on the time that the person is supposed to be at the office at that moment. But in this case, we're going to go into log on to. Here you're going to choose the options of where this user can log on to, which computers he can go. You can give him access to all the computers on the network, which is actually set up right now, or you can choose which computer he can access one by one. In this case, we're going to tell them that he can access Mako VM, which is the one that we have right here. We're going to add it, we're going to apply it, and we're all set here. Now we're going to go into our Windows 7 virtual machine, and now it's time to connect this computer into the domain. So we're going to right click on the My Computer icon on the desktop. We're going to go into Properties, and we're going to click on Change the Settings for the network. As you can see, the computer right now is connected to a workgroup by the name of Mako. This is what we're going to change right now. Since we're going to keep the name the same, but instead of being a member of a workgroup, we're going to change it so that the computer is a member of the domain mako.local. Now, as soon as we do this, the computer is going to ask us a permission, or is going to ask us a username of a person allowed to log in into the network. So in this case, we're going to put in the name of the user that we already created on the network. We're going to input the password for the user. I'm going to click OK. And now the computer should be added into the Mako domain. There we go. Welcome to the Mako.local domain. We're all set here. Now the computer is going to restart. And now what's going to happen is basically the same thing that happened with the Windows Server machine, is that the next time you log on, it's going to ask you for the username and password for a person belonging to the domain. Here we go. So now we're going to log in into the computer, and we have the name of the machine, which is Mako VM on the domain, and we have the username Carlos. Now the thing is that this user Carlos is not the same user that we have right here. Remember that the login is Carlos Manuel, not only Carlos. So we're going to switch users, and we're going to tell the computer that we're going to be logging with a different name, in this case, which is going to be Carlos Manuel, and the password for the domain. And we're going to go in, log in, welcome. Now the computer, when it logs in, it's not actually verifying the user locally, but it's connecting to the Active Directory server to make sure that there's a username named Carlos Manuel, and that the password is the valid password for that user. Right now the computer is preparing your desktop, but the thing here is that it's actually preparing the desktop as if it were the first time that this user is logging into the screen. So the desktop is going to be completely empty. There's nothing going to be here. This is pretty much a new installation for this user, and when you log in, when you click here, you can actually see the information for the person, for the Carlos M. Rodriguez, which is the same information that we have here on the Active Directory domain. Now this user has total control over this computer right here. So for example, he can personalize this copy of Windows, and he can pretty much change all the settings. For example, change the desktop background, change the colors, change the sounds. And some of the companies, this might not be one of the best choices. Sometimes you want to make sure that all the computers have the same design, same style. So what we're going to do here is we're going to implement a group policy that's going to allow us to block certain parts of the customization of the operating system. So in this case, we are going to just leave the original right here. I'm going to save those changes. You can pretty much change the color, change the sounds, change everything. Okay, so for that, we're going to go back into our Windows Server 2008. We're going to minimize the server manager, and we're going to open our group policy management window. We're going to click on Start, Administrative Tools, and then Group Policy Management. Here you're going to be able to see that we have our forest, where we have all the domains belonging to that forest. In this case, we have the local domain, Mako.local domain, and we also have the developer organizational unit. Now in here, you can actually set group policies for the entire domain or for developers only. In this case, we're gonna create a GPO for everyone in this domain. We want to maintain the same standards for everybody in this company. So we're going to create a new GPO in this domain, and we're going to link it here. The new name is going to be has to be something that you can recognize later on. So we're going to say that we're going to be locking customization. There we go. There we go, customization. And now what we're going to do is we are going to double click in this one. And when we double click it, you can actually see who this group policy is going to apply to. In this case, it's going to be for the Mako.local domain and for the authenticated users on this domain. So we're going to right click here, and we're going to edit this group policy, which is going to open the group policy editor. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tell the system that this user is going to have a certain policy. In this case, it's going to be an administrative template, and we're going to tell that in the control panel there are certain personalization settings that the user will not be able to change. In this case right here, we have some of the rules that can be applied. Right now everything is set to no, or is not being configured right now. So for example, we want the user to not change the color scheme of the computer. So we're going to double click on that. I'm going to tell them enable. I'm going to apply, okay. They can't change the theme of the computer. Apply, okay. Screensaver, no. We don't want a screensaver. And they can't change the background of the desktop. They can change also the icons for the computers. Can change the pointers for the mouse. They can't change sounds. And let's tell them that they can also change the screensaver even if they wanted to. And now that we have configured all the settings on the group policy editor, we're going to close this one. So right now we have set it up that so that all the authenticated users on the Mako.local domain are going to have lock customization. For that, we need to update the group policies on the client computer. First, let's refresh this. Okay. And let's go back to the Windows Server, Windows 7 Professional. We're gonna run the command. In this case, it's a command that forces the computer to update the group policies on that computer. Usually the policies are updated every certain amount of time, every 90 minutes to an hour, or every single day. In this case, since we want to do it a little bit faster, we're going to say GP update, and we're going to force the update on those policies. We're also going to log off of the computer, and I'm going to click OK. So we're going to see as they are updating the policies on this computer, the computer is connecting to the server, making sure that everything is okay, and it's updating. So we're done. Let's just log off for a second. Okay, let's log back in, and let's put the password, As soon as we come into the system, the group policy should already be updated. So we're going to right click, go to personalize, and now as you can see, every single option on the personalization screen, it's actually locked off. You can't change the desktop background, you can't change the colors on the screen, you can't change sounds, there's no screensaver allowed. Okay, so that's one way of forcing your employees to all have a preset system, and this group policy is being applied to every single user on this network. Now what we're going to try and do is we're going to deploy some software to a specific group, in this case the developers. We're going to tell the system that this group will be using a specific type of software, and since we don't want to go computer to computer installing software manually, we're going to deploy the software over the network. Now, in order to deploy the software over the network, we have to first make sure of a couple of things. In this case, we need to have the software already in the computer or in the server so that the other computers can actually see the software that you want to deploy. In this case, I created a folder on the C drive named software, where I'm keeping all the copies of the software that I want to deploy over the network. In this case, I have a copy of Adobe Reader and Mozilla Firefox. Now, first we need to make sure that this folder is actually shared over the network. Right now, only the administrators can see the folder, so we're going to tell them that everyone in the network is going to be able to see the folders, or at least read from the folders, since these programs that we want to transfer over the network are pretty small and they're not license dependent, and it's okay to keep them like that. Okay, so we're all set here. Another thing that's important to keep in mind is that when you're deploying software over the network, when you are deploying the software, you need to make sure that the software comes in a Windows installer package, or the MSI extension. The deployment will not work if you use executable files or .exe. So remember that whenever you want to deploy software, it has to be with the Windows installer packages. So now let's go back to the group policy management. We're going to create a new policy for the developers, and we're going to link it here. In this case, let's say that we're going to just say that this is going to be the Mozilla deployment. Okay. I'm going to click OK for a second. If we double click here, you are going to see that this is going to apply to developers only, for authenticated users from the developer. So if you have other users who are not part of the developer, the software will not be installed for them. So let's right click right here, and we're going to edit it. Now we can do this per computer. Say that we want to deploy the software in a specific computer in that group, but let's assume that this user is going to be moving from computers pretty often, so we want to have the same software available for this person. So let's go back to policies. We're going to say software settings, and we have right here software installation. We're going to create a new package. Now the computer is asking us where to pull the package from, and this is going to be a little bit tricky since the C drive on the client computers is not the same as the C drive on the server. So what we do is we call directly from the server, and here we have the software folder that we already are sharing with everybody else. So we're going to click right there. We're going to choose that we're going to deploy Mozilla Firefox, and we're going to say open. Now there's several deployment methods. There's the published, there's assign, and there's an advanced. Published is something that's going to be published to the computer. Assign is that going to be assigned to a specific person, And there's also the advanced option, which is the one that we're going to choose because we have several options once we have created it. Here we go. And we have on the properties, we have the name of the deployment, Mozilla Firefox, or just leave it like that. It's going to be version 3.6. All this information is being pulled from the Windows installer package. So here we're going to tell the system that's going to be assigned, because we're going to assign it, we're assigning it to a user. And we're going to choose two important options. The first one is going to be the install this option at logon, meaning whenever the person is going to log on to a computer, if the software is not installed, it's going to be installed right then and there. And also the uninstall this application when it falls out of the scope of the management. What this does is that if at any moment you decide that you want to delete that group policy, you can delete it, and the software that you installed will be deleted from the computer where you have it. So we're just going to click OK, and here we have our Mozilla Firefox package ready to be installed for any user on the developer organizational unit. So let's close this, and let's just do one quick refresh just to be sure. Let's go back to our Windows 7 Professional, just like we did before. We're going to run the same script that we did before. We're going to be updating, we're going to forcing, and we're going to be logging off. So let's go ahead and update the policy. Just like before, the machine is checking on the server if there are any changes on the policy. Now, what the machine is telling us right there is that the policy cannot be applied at that direct exact moment because you need to actually restart the computer to have access to it. So that's what we just did right now. We're going to install, we're going to log in to the system one more time. 2, 3, 4. And now when we're logging into the system, we're going to see the welcome screen, but behind this screen, the computer is pulling the file from the server and it's actually installing it on the computer. That's why the login is taking a little bit longer than usual. There we go. So now we're into the computer and we can see right here on the desktop that we have Mozilla Firefox already installed. When we double click it, it's just like if we installed the software for the first time. We don't want to import anything right now. And we're going to log in. It's going to checking if it's the default. We're just saying nope. And there you go. You install the software on an entire group without moving from your chair. Okay, and that's just a little run through of a few things that you're able to do with Active Directory and Windows Server 2008. Okay.